theyeshiva.net.
Welcome everybody, good morning. We're holding Bamidbar here, Tav Tazayin at page 31 in Bamidbar. Tazayin Amid Beis, the second column of Daf Tazayin, which will be page 31. We're in the middle of the second column, and the line starts with Chinas Mazlayu de Chazu. There's a long parenthesis that was added by the Tzemach Tzedek as footnotes to his grandfather's discourses. So we'll go after the parentheses. You see? It's lower in the page. Go after the parentheses. You see, it's a very, very long parentheses. Parentheses goes till 32. So we could learn the parentheses, but first we have to finish the pnim because the parentheses is a hezbollah on the pnim.
Wait, our parentheses stops toward the bottom page.
No, that's its own parentheses from the small words, you see. This parenthesis stops on page 32. You see, there's two parentheses. So it's actually, I said 30. Really, the end of the parenthesis is 32, which is Perik Dalet.
Still going to come back to the beginning first.
Of course, always. Va'avada. No, parentheses is bavonins it, but yeah, okay. We'll address it, but we could do the parentheses also, but we just have to first learn this thing. So in Perik Gimel, we explained the concept of im ein chachma ein yira. There's the yira that comes through chachma, meaning through Torah precisely. One can experience something of this, what we call soivav kol almin. Because hu v'chachma seyecha, Torah is chachma, Hashem is Shoyre and Chachma, and when a Jew learns Torah, so when a Jew learns Torah, where you have the Gilui of Hashem because it's the Chachma, and the main Gilui is in the Makar of Torah Chachma Ilah, and that's a mazel which trickles down into the Torah that we learn, any level of Torah you learn, even the most simple level of Torah, the way the Torah is enclosed in Gashmias. One learns that Torah, and the Zohar says that Yisrael is kashrem b'iraisa. Jews are connected to Torah, and Torah is connected to Hashem. So the Jew's soul is connected to Torah, and every neshama has a source in the Isis Torah. So when a Jew learns Torah down here, the shirish of his neshama gets awakened in the state of mazel, and the gili orin soif of Torah, and the source of Torah, the mazel of Torah, affects the mazel of the neshama l'mayla. So there is some awe that even is communicated even to the neshama down here, like the case of Mazlai Chazi. So that's the Imein Chachma, Ein Yira. But it starts off in Ein Yira, Ein Chachma. If there's no Chachma, there's no Yira, because the deepest Yira comes through Chachma. But we also say in Pirkei Avos, Ein Yira, Ein Chachma. There's no Yira, there's no Chachma. In other words, to have Chachma, you have to have Yira. So he says, Ach kedei lavi l'mayla madrega zu. Person to reach this state of consciousness, to be able to access the source of Torah, which is Chachma, the higher Chachma, Hashem's own Chachma, which in that Chachma is enclosed Mamish, the energy of the infinite one, and is completely unified with Chachma, like we said before, that Hu v'Chachma seyechad. That in Chachma you have Oiraisa Chachma Nafkas. In Chachma you have the Oirin Seif Baruch Hu. We explained the concept of Chachma, which is Bittul, and that's Torah, and he is one with his Chachma, and that main Gili is in the Makar of Torah, which is Chachma Ilah. So for a person to access this, Lias Gilu Zelamata Be'esek HaTorah Shalafanei Namalu Beshas Begashmi is that this should express itself, and it should be manifested in the learning of Torah, which is in front of us. In other words, the Torah that we learn, which is enclosed in material themes, material concepts. To the point that we said that this can engender a tremendous sense of awe, a natural sense of awe, because of what the Torah is being accessing. Because when the neshama here is learning Torah, the neshama there is learning Torah. The mazel is also learning Torah. The mazel of the neshama, which is always, where every Jew is connected to Torah. There's the Torah down here, there's the source of Torah. So the neshama, which is the mazel of the neshama, what we explained, is always connected with Torah. So when a Jew learns Torah, the mazel of the neshama experiences the mazel of Torah. In the mazel of Torah, we have the Soiv of Kalalman. So even though down here I can't access it in a conscious way, nonetheless it affects the person. And it affects this aim of a Charodik Del that Daniel spoke about and the Gemara discusses in Megillah. Afal Gav the Iulay Chazim Azlayu. But in order to introduction to this, Al Zeh Amru on this Chazal say Yemein Yirein Chachma. V'hu B'chines Yire Tata B'kiyim HaMitzvahs Maises B'Pa'al Mamash. This is Yira Tata, the lower level of Yira, which is expressed in the fulfillment of mitzvahs in Payal. So for the Yira that comes from the godliness in Torah, that Yira is stage B. That's Imein Chachma Ein Yira. The Yira that comes after Chachmas HaTorah. But before that there's Imein Yira Ein Chachma. So we asked, which one do you begin with? The answer is there's Yira Tata and Yira Ilah. Yira Tata means a lower level of awe. Yirei Law is a higher level of awe. The lower level of awe, this is Yiras Hashem on its most basic level, which is expressed in Kiyum, Mitzvahs, Maisius, Bepoil Mamash. Without that, even if a person is learning Torah, Kol HaYom v'Kol HaLayla, there's no way that he can experience the mazel, the flow, the trickle of the Kedusha that exists in Torah. To create that Eimah, there's no way without the Yirei Tata. So here he's introducing the concept that there is a lower level of awe which precedes Chachma. There's a higher level of Yira which follows Chachma. Generally, this is known in Sifrei HaNister as Yira Tata and Yira Ilah. A lower level of fear or awe and a higher level of awe. What's the difference? What's the difference between Yira Tata and Yira Ilah? So here, just a general vart b'chlal when we speak about Yira. What does Yira mean? Yira is Hashem, es Hashem Elokecha Tira. There's a mitzvah of Avas Hashem, v'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. And then there's a mitzvah of Yiras Hashem. It's one of the mitzvahs Aseh. Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. A person should have Yiras Hashem. How do you teach Yiras Hashem? Generally speaking, people often teach it as Yiras Ha'oinish, meaning you're afraid of punishment. You're afraid of consequences. Just like a person is afraid of Tati, or afraid of Mami, at least in the olden days. What were you afraid of? You're afraid of that if Tati finds out what you did in school, or Tati finds out how you behaved, the consequences. I don't know if that fear still exists in 2016. Maybe it's the other way around. Tati is afraid of the child. You could call the police. But that's bepashtus how we teach Yira. You're afraid of the consequences. That's not the Yira he's talking about here. That's a type of Yira. But that's not a Yira from Hashem. That's a Yira from what Hashem is going to do to me. In other words, I'm afraid for my own skin. I'm afraid of my own flesh. It's like a person, I'm afraid of you. Because, you say a person's afraid of his wife. What is he afraid of? He's afraid of what she's going to do to him. Or what she's not going to do to him. She'll throw him out of the house. She'll give him some negative treatment, or she's afraid of him. So that's Yira. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me. So essentially, the fear is self-directed. It's just because you have the power to do this and this, I'm afraid of you. But it's not I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid of what is going to happen to me as a result. Just like in love. There's two types of love. When I love you because of what I get from you, so it's not that I love you. I love myself. And I'm going to get from you something from me. So it's not that I love you, it's I love what I'm getting from you. In other words, I love me. And then because I need you for me, because you're going to give me things. They say about Avart from Rabbi Sol Salante. Sol Salante, his name was Lipkin. He was the founder of the Musa movement. His last name was Lipkin. So there was a the chief of staff of Israel some years ago was Amnon Lipkin Shachak was a Einikl of Sol Salanta. So some of the Lipkins are Einikl of his. So they say that he once saw a Jew who was eating chicken with a lot of gusto, with a lot of passion. So the Bisrael Salanta asked him, why are you so passionate about the chicken? He says he loves the chicken. What should he say? He loves it. Bisrael Salanta apparently said, it's interesting, you love the chicken, and you love the chicken so much, and you had it killed, slaughtered, and plucked, and sliced, and cut, and sauteed, broiled, roasted, cooked, and barbecued until it's going to be converted into your blood and make an entry into your bloodstream. Is this what you do with all those you love? You murder them and then you pluck them and then you eat them. He said, let's clarify the statement. You don't love the chicken. You love your taste buds. You love your abdomen. You love your mouth. You love the taste of food. It's not love the chicken. It's you love yourself. And the chicken happens to contribute to that. So therefore, you say you love the chicken. This was a profound meditation, because what he was really clarifying is, when I say I love you, what do I mean? I love you, or I love what you do for me. In other words, I love me. And you are a din, as you would say in yeshiva, du bist a din in mir. Right? You're just you're a din in me. It's part of me. I think there's an expression in Chovos HaLevavos, Rabbi Bechaya ibn Pekuda, the author of Chovos HaLevavos. He says, one of those svarim says, Kol ahava choizeres el ha'oyev. Love is essentially about the lover, and fear is about the one who fears. Right? I fear what you're going to do to me. It's completely not about you. It's completely about me. Elamah, you're in a position of power. So therefore, either I love you or I hate you. But it's not you, it's what it does to me. Which is in itself an important reflection of how we relate to other people. That's called Ava of Schar, or Yira of Einish. That's not Yiras Hashem, the way it's discussed in Sifrei Chassidus. Although anything that can stop you from doing the wrong thing is a good thing. In other words, any meditation that's going to stop you from doing bad things is showing good. It may be a lower state of consciousness, fine, okay. So if Yiras HaEinish does the job, and the Vaila person is not getting into trouble, shines. There's people who don't do illegal things, not because they care, but because they don't want to get caught. Their friend got caught, they don't do it. You know what? You're not getting yourself in trouble. Nish gefährlich. There's worse things you could do in life. Real Ava, real Yira begins on already a higher level. Real Ava, real Yira begins, actually, there's a love to you. Or there's an awe from you. What is this? This is Yiras Hashem, not the Yira of the Einish of Hashem, or the Schar of Hashem. I'm afraid to lose the Schar to get the Einish. But here the focus is actually on Yiras Hashem. It's a sensitivity to the relationship itself. What is this Yiras Hashem? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Generally, the word fear, Yiras Hashem, engenders, if you think about it, not necessarily comfortable emotions. How comfortable are we with the emotion of fear? Why do you fear God? Or do you fear God? But if you fear Hashem, what is the basis of this fear? What do you think most people will tell you? Why are they afraid? What are they afraid of? And what does that tell us about what they think of Hashem? Anybody? You don't have to all answer at once.
You're afraid you lose your job.
Huh? You're afraid you lose your job.
It gives us a vision of devotion as basically addictive, and that it colors the way we see the devotion.
Right. In other words, Yira is often seen as a vindictive force.
Isn't it an awareness?
Huh?
Yira is awareness.
Right. So the question is, what is it? What's the awareness that strikes fear into my heart?
That we're still on the other level of fear. That we're still on the lower level of it.
Right. So that's what we're going to discuss, the two levels. But both of them. Huh? No, not at all. Not at all. Yiras HaEinish is lower than Yirat Hata.
Wow.
It is what it is. It is what it is. As I told you, anything that gets you out of trouble, you know what I mean? It's nish gefährlich. If a person doesn't do things because he doesn't want to get caught, okay.
You translate Yira as fear, then why translate it as awe?
Better, right. That's the truth. It's better to translate Yira as awe. Simply for psychological reasons, even forget about accuracy, it's probably more accurate too. But when we hear the word fear, it's basically fear of somebody who's vindictive, somebody who's impulsive. Children who fear their father or fear their mother, they don't know what's coming, but they know it's going to be bad. That's what they know. I'm afraid of my boss. Why I'm afraid of my boss? I know he's not a logical person, he's not a sensible, he's not a common. So I'm afraid. There's no relationship. So Yiras Hashem really has to be like many things. It has to be reframed. And I want to explain what it is. Yiras Hashem means, it's a very beautiful idea. It's a very romantic idea, if I may say so. Yiras Hashem means, this relationship is too precious to me, and I'm afraid to lose it. The relationship is so precious, I'm afraid to ruin it. I'm afraid to break it. Let's talk about it in a marriage because it's just an easier muscle to understand. Sometimes couples are afraid of each other. Many, many men are frightened of their wives. And some of them, that's exactly what holds them in Haltzei Diram. And they're partially frightened. They're afraid. Once you get the text, where are you? He's already trembling and shaking. Now, fear doesn't necessarily mean you do what she wants. Fear just even means you get angry. The reason you get angry is because you're afraid and you're not uncomfortable. That's all a different type of yira. But then there's a yira where you say as follows. You know, let's say you have a best friend. Like really, really best friend. You walk into shul or you walk in somewhere else and people are telling a juicy, story about him. Call it gossip. Present shul and present company excluded, of course. And they ask you a question. And you walk away, you mix out. And why? Not because you're afraid of punishment. Because this relationship is too precious for you to tamper with. It's too precious for you to ruin. A person who has a relationship with a spouse, and there's a yira, I don't want to destroy this relationship. Not that I'm afraid of a punishment or I'm afraid of consequences. That's one thing. I'm not afraid of consequences. What's motivating me here is the relationship is so beautiful, it's so precious, it's so powerful. I don't want to damage it. It's too meaningful to me. This is not a yira of that I will lose something because you're going to punish me. Yes, I am going to lose something. I'm going to lose the relationship. But what's relevant here is that I don't want to lose the relationship. The kesher is too precious, and I fear losing the kesher. This is yira tata.
But it's still called yira, not ava. Even
Yes.
though it's ava.
Yeah, it's still called yira. Because the focus here is not the ava, the love, the desire that I want to be close to you, but actually the fear of the relationship being ruined.
In your example, why would, instead of mixing out, why wouldn't the person go to the defense of his friend?
Yes. Well, sometimes that's,
I mean, isn't that part, isn't that a...
Yes, yes. I didn't mean that he mixes out, but the point is he will not be part. He will not be part of this slander.
So, for example, if the relationship means enough, he's going to be a defense.
Yes, yes. We say Rosh Hashanah, Vayedaber kalpol ki ata pe'altoi, v'yavin kol yitzur ki ata yitzartoi. So it's brought in Sifrei Chassidic that there's two types of friends. Sometimes I have a friend, I love him. But if other people don't, it's fine. I like him, other people don't, it's fine. Sometimes I have such a friend, I can't tolerate that other people don't love him. I have to convince them also. So Rosh Hashanah we say, Vayedaber kalpol ki ata pe'altoi, v'yavin kol yitzur ki ata yitzartoi. It's not just enough that I have the relationship. I want every person to put their hairs. So that's a
higher level to...
Yeah, I'm just saying sometimes you mix out. My point was that it's not just my friend is going to find out and he's going to punish me. The relationship is too precious to ruin. That's yira tata. That's the fear. A Jew has fear. What's the fear? Not that he's vindictive. Not that God is going to take revenge. Not that you can't trust him. Not that he's chas v'shalom evil and bad and he hates him and he's looking for a way to punish him and ostracize him and get back on him. Of course I'm afraid. No. He loves you maybe more than you love yourself. He loves you unconditionally. The Yisaitis is that Hashem's love to a Jew, to a person, to every nivra, is absolutely infinite and non-negotiable. It says in Zohar Parshas Shmos.
How can you lose it? How can you be afraid of losing it?
Huh? No, not losing it. Ruining the relationship. You're not losing it, he'll still love you. But it's too precious a relationship to lose.
How can you ruin it if God loves you?
You won't ruin it. You won't ruin the relationship essentially, but you will not be able to be conscious of it anymore.
So
you're cutting yourself off, yeah. You're cutting yourself off. A child who rebels against mommy and tati, they may still love him unconditionally, but he's not part of their life. At least in his consciousness, he's not part of his life. And it's too precious for me. It's too precious for me. I was talking to a boy, so he went to, what's that organization? Footsteps, yeah? They help religious kids integrate into the secular world. So they do big Shabbos meals. They make Kiddush and everything. It's a phenomenon. So this boy was telling me that he went to Footprints. He left Yiddishkeit. He's a teenager from Barapar. He left Yiddishkeit completely. He went to Footprints. So a few weeks later, he came home. So his mother was very excited. Shabbos. His mother, what happened? So the boy says, I'll tell you, the warmth that I experienced here at the Shabbos table, I can't experience there. The vadamkeit that I had here at the Shabbos table, I can't experience it. They can't give it to me. So mainly came back home. So that's when somebody is appreciative of that relationship. I don't want to sever it. I don't want to cut it. That's the first level of yira tata. So it's not fear because you're a crazy meshugana and I can't trust you, and you're a tyrant and you're a dictator and you're impulsive and you're vindictive. No, on the contrary. You're so good, and the relationship with you is so powerful. I'm afraid of losing it. I'm not going to do anything that will undermine this relationship, this connection. That's already the first level of Yiras Hashem. Versus Yira, I'm pashat frightened because of the Einish, or I'm frightened because you're negative. Yira should never be associated with negative emotions. Yira is a very positive and beautiful emotion. It's a very beautiful emotion. It's the opposite of Ava, and it's an extension. And what do I mean opposite meaning? It's part of the experience of Ava. It's a different direction. It's an opposite direction. It's not the feeling of love. It's the feeling of fear. But what's the fear? The fear is, this is too beautiful to ruin. You got it? That's Yiri Tata. So what's Yiri Law? This sounds pretty good. What's Yiri Law? The difference between Yiri Tata and Yiri Law is, Yiri Tata is something that comes from the person's experience. Yiri Law is something that comes from above. It's a higher level of awe because I cannot create it in me. I cannot participate in it. I'll give an example. I once went with my wife to the Grand Canyon. The first time I went to the Grand Canyon. So I read up on it before, and I knew quite a lot about the Grand Canyon, I mean, relatively speaking. So I was expecting what to see. I knew what it looks like. I've seen the pictures. I know the Grand Canyon. I was expecting it. I just wanted to see it. So we got out of the car, I remember, and we walked over, and there's the place over there where you see the Grand Canyon for the first time. And I remember I went there, and I looked at it, and I lost my breath for 30 seconds. I was not present. I was in complete awe. And I'm like, I didn't expect this. In other words, everything I expected was what I expected. But actually, when you experience it, sometimes your breath is taken away. You couldn't initiate that. Because like we spoke with Chachma and Bina, what I initiate is that which is relegated to my imagination. But what happens when I experience it on its terms, not on my terms? Then I melt away beyond my own preparations because actually it overtook me in a way that overwhelms one. You can't prepare for it. And that's the difference between Yiri Tata and Yiri Ilah. Yiri Tata would be a Yira that a person can generate within themselves. It's based on their identity. It's based on their contemplation of who God is and what's God's relationship with them. From a very healthy, profound, spiritual, meaningful point of view, it creates a very good sense of Yira. A fear to destroy such a precious relationship, which is essentially a fear of really cutting myself off from my true self. Yiri law comes from something that's above me. It's an experience when God enters into my life. When Hashem enters into my life, it's not coming from my own experience. It's coming from something above me. This creates a whole different type of yira.
This was the charada?
Yeah, this is the aim of a charada gedayla. This you can't prepare for, and this overwhelms you. It's mavatal the person. It's like you lose yourself in the experience. In Yira Tata, you find yourself in the experience. It's based on your experience of the relationship. Yiri Ilah, you lose yourself in the experience. It would be like, you hear about a great person, a great man, a great individual, you read about them, you study about them, you reflect on them, you hear from other people about them, and you develop a certain emotion towards them. Positive emotion. I'm talking about a great person. but then there's actually entering their presence. And when you enter the presence, now there's a new dynamic that happens. Now, it's not just your understanding of who they are. Now it's actually their energy, which can overtake you and obliterate you in a positive sense. Obliterate you meaning in the sense that you melt away in the experience. There's an ecstasy that's not coming because you prepared yourself from your own initiation. You can't initiate for it. It's like an experience that enters into you. Like we spoke about Chachma versus Bina in terms of intellectual capacity, cognition. One is I understand, I get it, and one is it gets me, and therefore it's sudden, it's spontaneous. I didn't know what it's going to be like. Why? Because if I would have known what it's going to be like, it wouldn't have been that. It would have been what I know. This actually has nothing to do with me. It has to do with something that enters into my consciousness. That is Yirei law. They once, the Baal HaTanya was once talking to some Talmidim. He was speaking about his friend, his senior colleague, Rabbi Aaron of Karlin. Rabbi Aaron of Karlin was a student of the Maggid of Mezrich. He's known, in Chassidic history, he's known as Rabbi Aaron HaGadol, the great Rabbi Aaron. He's the founder of the Karlin dynasty of Chassidus. He died very, very young. He was around 36. He died in the middle of Chalamoyed Pesach. And he's the author of Ka'echseif, you know, the Nigun Ka'echseif people sing on Shabbos. He was a Kaddish Elyon, Mamish. So the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, was once talking about him. So he said that, I'm going to tell you about Rabbi Aaron of Karlin. He said that his Yiras Hashem was like the Yira, I guess he chose to give a very graphic metaphor that was quite prevalent in Tsarist Russia. A man who was sentenced to be killed by the firing squad, by the Tsar, in Tsarist Russia. And the man is taken to the yard where he's going to be shot, and he's blindfolded, and the executioner is standing there, and is standing with the revolver and is about to pull the trigger, and the man hears him pulling the trigger, and that level of fear that he has in his heart, that was the level of yira that Rabbi Aaron Karliner had when he was in a state of moichin de katnos, meaning when he was in a fallen, primitive state of spirituality, in lowest consciousness state, that was the level of yira he had from an Aveda. So they asked the Baal HaTanya, so now tell us what type of yira did he have when he was in a state of moichin de gadlus, when he was in a more developed state. He says you won't even be able to understand it. Lav kol moichi, you won't be able, I can't describe it to you, so therefore he didn't even give a marshal. Why can't he describe it? Because the pshat is, there's a certain level of yira, I can't prepare you for it. I can prepare you for things that you can comprehend. And then there is, I can't prepare you for it, because for this you have to experience the it. It's not something that you will be able to wrap your brain around and your heart around, because that's a yira that relates to your experience, to your terms, which is wonderful, but that's yira tata. Yira law comes from the outside, it comes from something that's above. He comes into the king to the point that the mitzias of the melech is present, and the person like loses himself in the process. Now, this is a very healthy experience to have. We don't have it much in our world, but this is a very healthy experience to have, where a person loses himself in an experience, doesn't only find himself in every experience. We try to replicate it, but the thing is you can't replicate it if you don't have what? In other words, to replicate this, for example, with a celebrity, right, is ridiculous, because you're losing yourself in the presence of something that you should actually run away from, because there's nothing here. They should probably have, in other words, so we replicate it because the human soul craves for it and yearns for it, but to become delusional and delude yourself to having yira for something that really is garbage, it's filth. It's pointless. It just debases the soul, and even within more elevated circles, perhaps, if it's just indoctrinated, so then ultimately it catches up to you because there's no real substance here to have yira. But the concept is a very meaningful idea, and that's why I used the concept of somebody who's really a big tzaddik of tremendous proportions. So there's what you hear and what you feel and what you know and what you describe and what you experience, and then there's actually being in their energy, and now it's a different vart because it's their energy. It's not my energy defining them, it's their energy defining me, And that is a state of, it's a muscle for Yira Allah.
What is the mechanism that actually happens?
There?
You lose yourself.
What's the mechanism?
When you saw the Grand Canyon, or perhaps for Shalom, you see a beautiful woman, or whatever, a person loses themselves. What actually takes place?
What happens there?
Yeah, what actually takes place? If you can answer that.
I don't know. Neurologically, we have to ask the neurologists.
Psychologically,
But I guess psychologically or emotionally or spiritually, what happens is, I mean, they discuss certain neurons in the brain that get triggered. I mean, it's a ganz, what? But what we're addressing here more, I guess, is emotionally. Huh?
That's the Yira Elua that you should have written down.
It's not you should. Yuri law is not you should.
You hope that what
Will
will come.
happen.
You hope it will
It's not
happen.
you
I
should.
don't
You can't
care
tell
what you
somebody
call
you
it,
should.
just what happens.
I think the process is really the person becomes one with the cosmos. You don't feel yourself as separate at all. It's almost like one becomes nullified in a higher energy and you're just one with it. Not you lose yourself out of terror or out of fear, or you become like, you know, when you recoil, you remember when your principal called you in, or you recoil in fear, you become like a crunched up little person. That's not yiratata, that's not yirailah, that's something else. That's called insecurity. Or you just become a small person. That's not yira. What we're talking here about is the person doesn't get small, the person becomes one. In other words, there's no ego anymore. There's no consciousness of the self that separates me from the experience. Usually, when I walk into an experience, there's me. You come into a chasana. There's the chasana, and there's you. And you place yourself in the chasana. We all know this, right? You come in. Where do I sit? Do I go over to the chasana now? When is my turn to dance? Should I take the telephone? I mean, you could see this on people's faces, right? Guy comes into a lecture. I was giving a lecture the other day. It was a big crowd. So there was one seat empty in front. So the poor guy had to walk through the whole hall and sit down in the front, right? So I could see him walking. So he was trying to behave. But when he sits down, I just noticed these things. He couldn't listen to anything because for 20 minutes he was thinking, you know, I came in late. What were they thinking of me? What do I look like? Do I look like this? Of course, nobody even noticed him, but it's irrelevant. Somebody once said the difference of a 20-year-old, a 40-year-old, and a 60-year-old. When you're 20 years old, you're very self-conscious. Who do I am? What clique do I belong to? What's my geder? What type of bacher am I? You know, what type of shidduch? What type of yeshiva? Am I this time? Am I yeshivish? Am I very yeshivish? Am I almost yeshivish? Am I modern, semi-modern, worldly, not worldly? Everyone is busy, you know. This is my group. That's my group. What's the mahalach? What are the shatchanim? What does Rosh Hashiva think of me? It's 20. And then when you're 40, you tell yourself, you know what? I couldn't care less what you think of me. This is who I am. You like me, good. You don't like me, euch gut. This is who I am. I'm proud of it. I don't care how you look at me. And then when you're 60, you realize nobody was ever looking at you. Right? So the point is that generally in life, we experience life with an ego. And that's how we do it. It's called self-consciousness. This happened by the Eitz Hadas, sense of self-consciousness. And any situation, there's me placing myself in the situation. And even in the most wonderful situation, it could be whatever, a Suda Shabbos, a Shir, but I am here and I'm in this context. In Yiri law, that barrier ceases to exist. There's no I experiencing you. There's you that pervades the entire energy, and I don't feel any more a separation. My ego, in other words, is lost. It melts in the unified, integrated, harmonious reality or energy that pervades this moment or this room or this experience. So the feeling, the emotional, psychological experience is that there's absolutely no barrier between me and the experience, which essentially is what we explained Chachma. Chachma means there's no barrier between me and the idea because I let myself go, and therefore the idea could fill my cup, my brain, my consciousness. Where in Bina, I assert myself once again to reclaim my identity. So in life, we're going to go out of the state of Yiri law because I want to claim my identity. But there is a moment where the person feels completely oneness. And not forced. It's not abusive. We're not talking about that at all. We're talking about something that's very, very elevated. On the contrary, a person craves it, yearns it, because they're losing themselves, but they're losing themselves as a result of experiencing a truth that ultimately pervades all of existence, and that's why they're losing themselves. They don't want their I to diminish themselves and not allow themselves to experience it. I once heard from a pianist, great pianist, he played in Carnegie Hall. So I once asked him a question, what's called success for you? What's the definition of success? You're playing a piano, you know the song, you do it well. What's the definition of success? What does it mean you were good tonight? So he told me something very profound. He says, success means when I'm playing the piano and at some point I'm not present anymore. I'm not playing the piano. The music is flowing through my fingers and I'm not present. That's success. And it's a very meaningful truth. Any artist knows this. A writer, a speaker, an actor, a musician, a composer. There are moments when you're doing it. You're talking, you're lecturing, you're writing. And that's ultimately, I am putting everything into the context, which is fine. That's not success. Success is, I don't hear myself talking anymore. In fact, I'm not even there. I mean mentally. Of course you're there, but I'm not there. Now, the words are simply flowing. There's a higher energy that comes through the person. That's what real art is. Real art. This is similar to this concept, that the ego loses itself in the oneness of the experience. This is a mashal for what he's going to explain about Yiri law versus Yiri Tata. So there's Yiri Tata, right? You remember? And there's Yiri law. The lower level of fear, of awe, and the higher level. Really, a good translation. That's why I think Yiri Tata is better translated as fear and Yiri law better as awe. Because Yiri law is not really fear in the sense of I'm afraid. It's more, it's not I'm afraid. It's not even a fear that I initiate. It's not even an awe that I initiate.
Yes, yesterday. How do you translate in Yiddish? How do you say awe?
Awe in Yiddish. Forcht. How do you say fear in Yiddish? Moira, yeah?
No, Yiddish, that's Hebrew.
So how do you say...
Forcht.
Forcht?
Forcht.
Oh, so forcht, it's a German word, yeah. Right? Forcht. You could hear it's a German word. I don't know how you say awe in Yiddish. Is there something like awe in Yiddish? Do Yiddish-speaking people have awe? Sitter?
Shivering.
I don't know if sitter. Sitter means... Charuda is not awe. Charuda is dread. Awe is something else. Awe is as a... It's not, you're not fearful. You're just like, wow. It's like, wow. It's like you melt. You don't feel yourself. Huh?
I say
Awe in Hebrew?
His spars?
Yira.
His palace, you say?
Spars.
It's a guy in Nefsha. It's a guy in yeah.
His spars means it's boiled on,
No, hispilus means you're moved, you're affected. It could be in many different ways. You start screaming, you get excited, you start jumping. Hispilus means you get excited. I don't know.
Over time, I think when Gemara talks about, like my Tatar, Mashallah, by Valkyrie, Mashallah, the year there's a few adjectives.
Be'ema u'be'yira be'resis u'be'ziyah.
Things like one of those two, maybe. Right?
That's what the Gemara says. Mala halam be'ema u'be'yira be'resis u'be'ziyah. Afkan be'ema be'yira be'resis. Resis is a tziter. Zeh is a shvitz.
maybe Ema.
Ema is fear. And yira maybe is reverence in English. Reverence also. Reverence. So this...
Wonderstruck.
Huh?
It's very Matim. It's very Matim. There's no word. I mean, that's good for the point.
Wonderstruck.
Right.
Because we can use words.
There's no words for it. There's no word. There's no word for it. Very good. There's no word. In other words, words come from definition. Huh? Verwundert? I don't think so. Okay, I'll call upon it. Imein yirein chachme, imein chachme in yira. So there's two yiras. There's the yira that's the prerequisite for chachma, And there's the Chachma that's the prerequisite for Yira. And one cannot come before the other. So he says, Kehine ha-mitzvahs ein mitzvahs ha-melech. Right, you see? Kehine ha-mitzvahs ein mitzvahs ha-melech. Everybody has it?
5 lines down. And Dalit 5 lines down.
Perek Dalit, page 32, 5 lines down. The line starts, Kehine ha-mitzvahs ein mitzvahs ha-melech. The mitzvahs are the mitzvahs of the melech, of the king. Ubekiyuma mekayim soim tasim alech ha-melech. When a Jew observes them, he fulfills the mitzvah, we say in Parshas Shoftim, soim tasim alech ha-melech, you should place upon yourself a melech. The diuk here is something that you can do to yourself. In other words, I can accept upon myself a melech. I can accept authority. It's something that I have to do. A melech is not a melech on his own. The people choose him as a melech. There's a din, soim tasim alech ha-melech. Chazal say simis harbe, soim tasim alech. You place on yourself a melech. That's the concept of yirat hatah. The Jew chooses a relationship, and the Jew is committed to the relationship. It's a commitment, and the fear here is the yira that he doesn't want to. He's afraid to undermine the relationship, to ruin it, to destroy it, because it's too precious, it's too powerful, it's too potent, it's too meaningful a relationship. And we all know when it comes to a friendship, how long does it take to build an authentic friendship? It could take 10 years to build. It could take 20 years to build. How long does it take to destroy? 30 seconds, right? 30 seconds, you could destroy a relationship. So this is the Soim Tasim Alech HaMelech, which is represented in Kiyum HaMitzvahs. This is the Imein Yira Ein Chachma. Why? Why is it represented in Mitzvahs Ma'aseh Betrothal Mamish? Because this represents the commitment that the Jew has to Hashem, the commitment that the Jew has to the king. And this is the connection of mitzvahs to Yira Tata. Just like when a person has Yira, and he does the commandment of Hashem, even though he may not be in the presence of the one who's commanding him, but the impact is still there. Yirei law will never happen out of the presence, because Yirei law is when you come into the presence of the Melech, and the awe, the energy is overwhelming. But Yirei Tata is not overwhelming. Yirei Tata is just a commitment to a relationship that is very deep, and therefore I'm committed to fulfill His will, even though I'm not completely in awe and my metzias is not melting away in complete reverence. So it's expressed in what I do. That's why it's expressed in mitzvahs. Rather, Yirei law is not expressed in what I do. Yirei law is a state of consciousness where I'm completely one. In fact, in a state of Yirei law, it's very hard to do something. Because to do something, you actually have to be in a state where you're capable of doing. Yirei law is a state where you're like completely melted. And it's fascinating that in the Baal HaTanya's Torah, this is the difference of mitzvahs and limud HaTorah. Mitzvahs is basically the symptom and the result of Yirei Tata, which leads to Chachma. Imein Yirei ein Chachma. Because without Yirei, there can't be Chachma, meaning you're not open to the relationship. So if you're not committed to a relationship, you're not open to the relationship, so you're not open to experience the other. And then once you have Chachma, now you can experience the other Yira, which is in Torah, which Torah is a Reisa me Chachma Nafkas, and in Chachma you have the Ein Sof himself, the Sof of Kalalman, and that is expressed in Torah, and the Neshama who learns Torah is affected by that, and that's the Pchin of the Eim Gdoila that fell on Daniel's friend, or on Daniel himself. That depends on how much the Jew experiences Torah, what level of Torah, what layer of Torah, in its full intent, how intense that is. So v'yira zui achana lahamshach al yad giluyer in seif baruch hu mamish hamalubish b'chachma elon shadei sekatayr. This lower year is the preparation to be able to experience the oirein seif mamish, which is manifested in the chachma law, the highest level of chachma, through learning Torah.
Can you have Yirei law towards a human being?
Well, every idea here exists as a mashal with human beings. So yes, it's not exactly the same model, of course, and it's not exactly accurate, but the concept exists also between two human beings. In a relationship between two human beings, again, the concept you have, exactly this model, of course, you don't have.
Isn't that a dangerous concept to have that with regard to a bus of Adam?
It could be very dangerous. It could be very, very dangerous. Yes. If you're talking with a this is what the dictators, professional manipulators do. You know, they can hypnotize you in their charisma. This was the power of the Führer of Germany, had millions of people completely losing their identity in his presence. Huh? You ever watched the parades in Germany? The ecstasy that overwhelmed the Jugend, the youth, in the millions. And he was a master manipulator of this. So Zela Umazah, you know, every Nekudah in Kedusha can be completely distorted and clipper. That's the fact with everything. But could it exist between humans in a powerful way? Yeah.
Wasn't that
The mashal would be a big tzaddik. What?
Yeah, I was going to say the phenomenon of Shabtai Tzvi.
Shabsi Tzvi is similar. Nathan of Gaza, really, his spokesman. Well, Shabsi Tzvi, I don't know if it was Mamaj that, but his message and everything. But
wasn't a charismatic figure that
he himself.
people melted and lost their identity. That's the timing here that we're talking about. That it shouldn't be. It should
Right.
be Kud Shabriku and not with the.
Right.
I understand. After you get this whole beautiful thing about Torah bringing down Yirei Law, so he's saying, but wait a minute, you have to first do the mitzvahs in Yirei Torah too. But he's not really showing why that should be. What's to stop you from just going straight to Torah and getting Yirei Law without doing the mitzvahs first?
So he's going to explain now. This gives perspective on the nusach of davening. We always say Shabbos, right? And then this order is precise. First should be Torah and then mitzvahs. Why? Everybody knows the Gemara in Kiddushin, Talmud Mevi L'Dei Maisa. Learning brings to action. If you don't learn, you don't know what to do. First you learn, then you do. So l'chayda, we should ask Hashem, Elokeinu v'Elokeinu v'Seinu, Sein Chalkeinu b'Seirasecha. We should have our part in Torah, we should have Atzlacha in Torah, and then Katshenu b'Mitzvah. No. We start off Katshenu b'Mitzvah, and then Sein Chalkeinu b'Seirasecha. It's interesting, because in Avas Olam every day, not Shabbos and Yom Tov and Krishma, we first speak about learning and then about mitzvahs. The same b'libeinu bina, right? Lahavin, lahaskel, lishmaya, lilmad, lalamad, lishmar, velasas, ulekayim, is called divris, amateresecha, b'yav. First there's lahavin, there's lahaskel, there's lishmaya, there's lilmad, there's lalamad, and then there's lasas, ulekayim. But Shabbos and Yom Tov, the order changes. The order every day is consistent with the way it works. You learn and you do. Talmud Mevi L'Dei Maisa. Shabbos and Yom Tov, we first speak about Katshenu b'mitzvah then V'sein Chalkeinu b'seirasach. V'ha'inyan. Ki pirush Katshenu, because we're not stop talking about mitzvahs. Katshenu hu loshen kiddushin ve'erusin. The word Katshenu is not only sanctify us, that itself comes from the word kiddushin, betrothal. In halacha we have a kind of erusin, marriage, in honor of the chasana last night. U'k'masher kasuv, as the pasuk says in Hosea, and then many people say this pasuk when they put on tefillin, ve'irastich li la'olam. It's the Torah of Parshas Bamidbar. I will betroth you forever, right? Ve'irastich li la'olam, ve'irastich li b'tzedek, b'mishpat de'emunah, v'hainu aydei ha'mitzvahs. When we make a bracha, we say, Baruch atah Hashem asher kiddishanu b'mitzvahs. So the world teaches kiddishanu. He sanctified us. He made us holy. A yid does a mitzvah, becomes holy. No. There's a deeper pshat. Kiddishanu means he married us through his mitzvahs. Miloshen kiddushin, hareat mekudeshesli. He betrothed us through his mitzvahs. From the word kiddushin, which is erusin, and that's why we say katshenu b'mitzvah secha. It's the b'china of eirastich li la'olam. Shekemoy akiddushin ha'imayde shenoisin atabaz betzva kala. What is kiddushin in halacha? The chassan takes the ring and he places it on the finger of the bride. Sheibchina chitzayin is bilvat, which essentially, in terms of a relationship, it's external. What did he do? He took a ring and he placed it on her finger. And nonetheless, but as a result of this, she becomes an Eshes Ish. She's betrothed to him. They are husband and wife now, with all the ramifications. If they want to move on, there's a need for a get, there's a need for a divorce. If Chalila she goes to somebody else, it's an inyan of adultery, of Gilui Arayas. Why? Remember, in the time of Shas, Erusin and Isuyin were 12 months apart. So the first stage was just this. He placed a ring on her finger, or whatever he gave her to be Mekadesh. The minig is today a ring. And there were 2 Eidos, and she was Mekadesh, even though she went to live with her father. 12 months later, there was the chuppah. The chuppah that we make with Sheva Brachas, with the whole meal. And then they moved in together to the house.
It's already like married after the ring.
Completely. Halachically, completely. They don't live together physically in the same house and build a family, but haret mekudeshesli. Haret mekudeshesli. So Tosfos in Kedushin asks, what's the word mekudeshes? You're sanctified to me? When she becomes holy when she's married to you? Maybe it's the other way around. So Tosfos Tain is mekudeshes two things, right? One is Asher la kula alma kehektish. Tosfos Kedushin Daf Beis. You remember? Asher la kula alma kehektish. Like hektish is asr, people can't use it. Once there's kedushin, and then there's kedushin from the word mekudeshesli, meyuchedesli, mezumenesli. She's designated. So l'chayr it's an inyan of chitzayiniyas, but she becomes mekudesh. Then through the kesef, tabas, and then v'niknes loy bebiyah sheyam shachet pnimis. Then comes biyah. What's biyah? Biyah is phase 2, intimacy. Intimacy, the physical relationship. This is called hamshachet pnimis. In terms of physical relationships. The ring represents a relationship, but he calls it B'chinas Chitzonius Bilvat, and this is Kiddush. Stage 2 is Nisuyin, which in Halacha is manifested in the result of Nisuyin, which is they live together, Biyah, and this is an inyan of Hamshach Pnimis, as the Pasuk says in Bereshis, Al Kein Yazav Ishis Avives Ima V'Davak Be'ishtoi, he cleaves with his wife, V'Hayu L'Basar Echa, they become one flesh. In other words, there is an internalized relationship biologically, physically, which represents emotionally and spiritually. This is a metaphor for our relationship with Hashem. And this is the p'china of katshenu b'mitzvaysecha v'sein chalkenu b'seresach. One is erisin, one is nisuyin. One is kesef, one is biyah. Ha'isha niknes b'shalosh drachim, niknes b'kesef, u'b'shtar, u'b'biyah. So spiritually, it's 3 stages. Kesef is the first step, which is Yirat Hatah, which is Kiddushin. And then there is ultimately the union of Shtar, which is Torah, right, the document that the Baal Shem Tov says, which brings to Biyah, as we're going to see, the B'chin of Yirei Allah. So the 3 paths in the Mishnah and Kiddushin reflect spiritually also 3 paths. It's interesting, Al Pi Nigla, Al Pi Alocha, this is also reflected in a very interesting way. The Mishnah says you can be mekadesh a woman in 3 ways. Kesef shtarbi. The Gemara says Rav Mangid Amanda mekadesh b'biyah mishum pritzus. Biyah was outlawed for kedushin. There's still kesef and shtar. La halacha, the Rambam says in Hilchas Ishus, Nagu kol Yisrael lekadesh b'kesef or b'shavah kesef. That's the minhag. We don't do shtar. The minhag by Yidden is you take kesef or shavah kesef. Doesn't have to be money. It could be shavah kesef. Comes the Ramah and says in Even Ezer in the halachas of marriage, and he says, Nagu kol Yisrael, that today the minhag is lekadesh b'tabas. Not just kesef, but to take a ring and give the ring. And the Ramah says, V'yesh lazeh tam b'tikunei zohar. The reason is because of tikunei zohar. In other words, the Ramah acknowledges in Ramah and Shulchan Aruch and Even Ezer that this is not a halachic consideration, it's a Kabbalistic consideration.
Why is it not a Shavah Kesef?
It is shavah kesef, but it's a tabas. So he says that's a tikunei zohar. Tikunei zohar, it says it's like tefillin. Just like you put on tefillin as a sign of your marriage to Hashem, the ring is like what she puts on her body. It's like her tefillin and her relationship with Hashem. A whole arichis in tikunei zohar, why a ring? Comes the Rakachaver, it's Hafnas Paneach, the Rakachaver gone, and he says that even though the Ramah says yesh l'zeh tam tikunei zohar, but it's halacha. And the reason it's halacha is because actually it's crucial for the marriage to happen. Why is it crucial? So he says a very interesting kedarka. He has his titles that are very original. Dr. Chavez says as follows: the halacha is that kiddushin, you have to give the wife something that becomes completely hers. It's hers. That's why there's halacha. You can't be a mekadesh with a sefer Torah. You can't be a mekadesh with a Torah. Huh? Because it's tziburs. So mainly you still have a shaykhis to it. So since you still have a shaykhis to it, so therefore it's not a good kiddushin. So the Ramah says as follows. Here there's a serious problem. What's the problem? The assets or the nechasim that a woman brings into the marriage, what's called nichse melug, the Baal has a certain right to them. Not that he owns it, but he has peiros, what's called fruits. The fruits of it, he has rights to it. So he says, here's an issue. The issue is that if you're giving her something kiddushin, and you still have rights to it, it's not kiddushin. So he says, in the Zman of Chazal, it wasn't an issue. Because when does the Baal get rights in her nechasim? After Nisuyin. But Nisuyin is 12 months later. So therefore, during Erisin, you gave her whatever you gave her, and I don't care. So whatever you gave her, even though you may have certain rights to it, it's still Kiddush. But he says that's why the Ramah comes up with the idea of a ring. Today, the Erusin and the Nisuyin are all together. Under the same chuppah, we do the Erusin and we right away do the Nisuyin. He does Kiddushin, and right after that, you take a break, you do the Ksuva, and then you fill up the cup of wine, you do Sheva Brachas, which is the Nisuyin. So Erusin and Nisuyin are done together. So the Ramah says, if you give her anything, stam kesef or shava kesef, and you have rights to it, there's no kiddush. Shenkin a ring is a lavush, because it's a lavush and she's wearing it. So here, right? There's no paydas from it because it's actually something that she's wearing. It's not like a field that you're going to plant and you could sell the fruits. It's real estate that you could rent out. Right? It's an animal that you could rent out. It's a car. You give her a car, right? And you could rent it out for somebody. Here it's a lavush that she wears. So first of all, two people can't wear the same ring. Number two, la yilbash gever simlas isha. So mela, once it's on, and that's why the minig is not just give her a ring. The Zohar explains give her a ring. Why do we put on the ring? You can't just give her a ring. It has to become a lavush. You're not just giving her a monetary gift that's worth $1,000 or $100. You have to put on the ring on her finger, so it's a lavush. So Mela, it's hers exclusively, because now halachically you have no rights to it. What are you going to do with it? He says, only then is it a good kiddush. So he says, what the Ramah says, the meaning is like it's mukhrich in halacha today, once Erusin and his son. Now, essentially, you could have also do it with a dress, but that's not practical under a chuppah. You're going to go get a dress and this. Forget about the, whatever. I mean, I guess you could put a scarf or whatever, fine. But the tabak, that's easier to take off. Tabas, once she puts it on, she stays with it. It's tight on the finger. Interesting word, no? This is what the Tzafnas Paneach writes.
The Ramah might come out sounding a little bit Kabbalistic.
So why does the Gemara say that?
He says, Venirali, the Hine Ein B'Yerushalmi, that if you're Makadish with something that still belongs to you, it's not good, but
So the Gemara, when it's in
he brings a Ran, Mana Einkan, there's a whole Ran in Kiddushin, of Ches, Mana Einkan, Mashkin Einkan, the Ran says that there can't be any shaykhs to him. Yeah?
So the matanas that are given at the time of Erusin that are returned because the whole thing falls apart, that's not what we're talking about here with the tabas.
Yeah.
Because there's a kiddush, she's
she's koinen, and it becomes hers, but the chiddush by him is that it's a keli, it's a lavush. It's not some an asset that she owns. You give her a car, it's a problem. Even though the car may be, a BMW, and it's a little more expensive than the ring, but that's irrelevant because you have paid us. And men with cars, they have a weakness to it, attachment. but the ring is a lavush. This explains why you put on the ring. It's not stam you're giving it.
What is the difference when the Eris was separate from the Nisuyin?
It's not a problem because you're only koiner her nechasim after nisuyin, so you have a year. You understand? So there was a Kiddushin. Later you get a kinyan, it's not a problem. But now, right when you do it already, there's going to be Nisuyin. So it's...
Accuracy of the double ring ceremony.
Huh?
This is the problem with double ring ceremony, that they say it can't be the same time because he gives her the ring, she gives him a different ring. Could be like a chalithin. That's what they say. It shouldn't be done immediately.
But my nafkamina here. So we have here two stages. The tabas creates a dvekus, but a dvekus chitzonis. Bia creates a dvekus pnimis. What does this represent? So he says, Kach ha-mitzvahs shagam she'im b'chinas chitzonis elavushim la-nefesh mikol makom behem v'al yodem nasa b'chinas kiddushin. Liyoy soim tosim alecha melech b'chinas chitzonis v'yisam kedoshim l'lekeichem. Ubazeh v'sein chalkeinu b'soyrasecha daika, not Torah. In your Torah, shetei shoyro mizgalam shachas chachmeila b'bchinas pnimis b'bchinas zivug v'yichud mamish k'maimer chazal al pasuk b'yom chasanosei zemat in Torah sheb'chinas chasanosei mamish. In Yiddishkeit, there's two phases, there's two stages. Kachein of mitzvah sechas, the kiddushin. It's also a relationship. It's also a dveikus. But what's the dveikus? It's nonetheless still external. I place a king on myself. V'yisam kedoshim l'lekeichem. I'm Kaddish to Hashem. Now, when he says chitzonius here, it doesn't mean superficial. Remember that the Eishes Ish is not so superficial. It's very deep. What he means chitzonius here is that it doesn't penetrate the core of the human being. Rather, it defines the behavior of the human being. It defines the gestalt of the human being. It defines the koyach hamais of the human being, or the koyach hadibra of the human being. It defines more, he says, levushim lahanefesh, garments to the soul. What's the nekuda of a garment? A garment I put on and I take off. I can't change my nose easily. I mean, today people do it, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of pain. I don't think it's worth it. They look worse. But a shirt, I don't like my shirt. It gets dirty, I take it off. You don't like your suit, get rid of it. And this is a very important idea. Machshava, dibur, and maisa are called levushim of the nefesh. Mitzvahs you do with dibur or maisa. I give tzedakah, I daven, I say krishma, I bench, I count Sfiras Omer, I shake lulav. I run to do a mitzvah, I eat matzah. Whatever it is, I hear shofar. It's a maisa, a dibur, or machshava. That's called levushim hanefesh. Then there is the soul itself. And the difference is garments you take off and you put on. The soul itself, you can't take off and put on. It's like the body versus the clothes. You can't just change your body. It doesn't work that way. It's very, very difficult. Where garments are very easy to change. You don't like a garment, you take it off, you put it on. And that's the difference between machshava, dibur, and maisa versus a person's inner emotions. I can't just change an emotion. I say, I want you to start liking this person. I don't. What should I do? So maybe I have to meditate, maybe I have to go through a process, maybe I have to work it out. But this can take years, it can take months, it can take a lot of toil, because it's changing a midah. What about a levush? If I say, I want you to change the way you speak. Say, but I'm not in the mood. Okay, so what? So you're not in the mood. Change what you do. What you do, that's a garment. A garment you take off, you put on. That's the difference between something that's a levush and something that's more pneumistic. And the two things, and the distinction is very important, because we often don't realize that thoughts, words, and actions are garments, and therefore you can always remove them. We sometimes think that when I'm thinking in a certain way, that is who I am. It's not who you are, it's your thoughts. And just like you thought this way, you could start thinking about something else. And ultimately, your thoughts will determine a lot of your attitudes. So the levushim are very, very significant because they are what we choose to get dressed in. And the clothes you choose to dress yourself up in are very powerful. They say from Rabbi Sol Salanter that he once saw somebody who was very depressed, was very sad. So he said, your inner, it was on Shabbos. It was on Shabbos. And he was walking around, he was very sad. So he said, your inner emotions are a Reshus HaYachid. Your face is a Reshus HaRabim. You're not allowed to carry on Shabbos from the Reshus HaYachid to the Reshus HaRabim. Meaning your face, I see. Everybody sees. So it's a public domain. Your inner emotions are Reshus HaYachid. To put it a little bit in different language.
Inner emotions is also easy to change.
No. No, it's not at all. The midas, you can't. You could, but it's a big avodah. It's like changing the body. You need cosmetic. You need cosmetic surgery. You need emotional surgery. You could do it, but it's an avodah. Levushim, I could change like this. I may not want to change it, but I could change it. I can't say I can't change it. You are a master about what you think about. What your thoughts are. You could change your thoughts. No, I can't. No, you could. You could think about something else. You could think different thoughts. Now, we don't realize this because we get carried away with our thoughts and they control us. We don't control them. But it's not true. You're sitting at the driver's wheel and the thoughts come in. You could say, we're now going to think about something else. The thoughts are overwhelming. The thoughts are intense. The thoughts are taxing. But they're still levushim. And levushim, you change 24 hours a day. The internal composition and character, this takes more avodah. And this is the distinction. Kiddushin versus biyah. In a marriage, you have two different states of relationships. In a marriage between an isha and an isha. Generally, you have more, but generally here we're addressing two of them. Number one, you have the concept of tabas, kiddushin, which he says is kiddushin ve'erisin shebchina chitzoni is belvad by deizei miskadeshes lai. And then you have a deeper concept, and that is the concept of biyah, which is an inyan of pnimius. The first state of kiddushin is very significant, Because what it does is, it's a commitment in behavior. It's a commitment in behavior. I'm committing myself. Why we call it external? We call it external, not because it's not so external. It could be very deep, but the point is, it's a commitment in terms of how I'm going to live my life. This is a person that you're married to. A person you're married to means there's loyalty to this person. You're committed to a real relationship with this person. What does it express itself in? It expresses itself how you speak to the person, what you do for the person and what you don't do for the person, which is what the Ksuva articulates. You're mechuyev this, you're mechuyev that, all of the obligations of an ish to an isha, and an isha to an ish. And there are the spoken obligations, there are the unspoken obligations, but the point is, there's a commitment in relationship, soim tasim alecha melech. And this is what the ring represents. That's what the Zohar says. It's like tefillin. What's tefillin? Tefillin is, I so to speak, take my body and I wrap up my body, almost like a kesher. Not almost, it is a kesher. It's a hiskashrus. Basically, I'm connected to you. I'm committed to you. And that's what a marriage is. He's committed to her, and she's committed to him. And the commitment is unwavering. Unwavering means one day I'm in a good mood, one day I'm in a bad mood. One day I'm in love, one day I'm challenged in the love, one day you're romantic, one day you couldn't care less, one day you regret. Fine. So what? You're still married. But I'm not feeling. I don't care. Levushim are not dependent on feelings. But you want to blow up. So you want to blow up. So who says that you want to blow up, you have to blow up? So you have to work out your emotions. That's an important phase. But it doesn't destroy or create a relationship. This is what a lot of Americans don't understand. Machshava dibra ma'isar levushim. Levushim you're always in control of. And they are very, very significant because they represent how you live. And how a person lives in actuality. What the clothes I choose to put on. I choose what to think about, I choose what to say, and I choose what to do. Even though internally I may be conflicted, which is fine. I don't deny that. I'm conflicted, but I choose what to put on. I go to the drawer, and I decide I'm going today with the green shirt or with the blue shirt. Why decide a blue shirt today? Or some of us don't really have a choice. We only have white shirts. So we go with the white. I actually have a few blue shirts. striped blue. But you choose what you're going to put on. That's everybody's choice. Yeah, but I'm tormented, but I'm this. Fine. A levush is not about who you are. It's how you choose to be, to express yourself. And in a paradoxical way, it affects who you are, but it's not dependent on that. And that's the first stage in a relationship, a commitment. Commitment means I'm committed to you. That's the idea of kaf aleim har kegigis. Kaf aleim har kegigis was basically the tabas kiddushin, which basically represents that we are in an enveloping relationship. We're committed to each other. That's the concept of saim tasim alecha malach. Why are we calling it chitzonius? We're calling it chitzonius because, like the ring, it defines my body, it defines my finger, it defines my commitment, but it's not yet biyah. It's not b'yoyim chasunasa zeh matan Torah. The Mishnah says in Tainis, b'yoyim chasunasa zeh matan Torah, chasana represents nisuya, not ederson. We call a wedding everything. The whole wedding is a wedding. But in halacha, chasana is the ultimate of the chasana. Zeh matan Torah. What's the zeh matan Torah? This is the concept of zivug v'yichud mamash. What is intimacy? Intimacy is not just people are committed to each other. Intimacy means into me see. Into me see. In other words, just like it is in biologically, it's also spiritually. There is complete penetration, there is synthesis. Two energies come together. In other words, I open myself up to absorb somebody else's love and energy. And they open themselves up to absorb the other person's soul. Now that takes a lot. It's not easy. Are you capable of allowing somebody to see you completely? Physically and spiritually. In halacha, like we're learning here in Torah, halacha and nister work together. The Gemara says, Hu bevigda v'hi bevigda, yoitzi v'yitin ksuva. If he makes a condition, we're very frum, everybody stays enclosed 24 hours a day. The halacha is, it's not going to work. Yoitzi v'yitin ksuva. This is not a legitimate demand. So the Balatanya says in Likkutei Torah that a Yid comes to Hashem and says, listen, if you want to stay in your clothes, yoitzi v'yitin ksuva. It's not going to work. The relationship has to be vulnerable. vulnerable. Vulnerable means naked. But we're not only talking physically. That's on a gashmizdika level. On a spiritual level, it means there's no levushim, there's no cover-ups, there's no masks. Here you're going deeper than levushim. But that's not an easy thing. That vulnerability requires tremendous trust. Are you capable of allowing somebody completely into your life without any barriers, without any levushim whatsoever? If you do, then the pleasure of intimacy is tremendous. Because it's not just physical, it's spiritual, it's psychological, it's mental. In many ways, it's eternal. It's everlasting. It's a binyan adeyat. But it's a hard thing. And without the trust, without the commitment to the relationship, you can't get to the second stage. So we're not here talking about just intimacy, people don't think and they do whatever to fulfill a craving. We're talking here about real zivug. Is a zivug that means that two people allow themselves to merge completely. The level of trust and vulnerability and psychological nakedness and exposure that necessitates is very profound.
The person has a choice.
Of course we have a choice. We have resistance.
Not to be open to God.
Well, with God, of course we have a choice. At least from our perspective. Does he know what's going on? Of course he knows what's going on. But the same with your wife. She also knows what's going on. But it doesn't mean you're vulnerable, right? She just knows it on her own. Women generally know their husbands pretty well. But if he's not open, they just process it in their own way, They can't connect to it because they almost have to protect it from themselves. So that ability to be able to have zivug v'yichud mamish is a whole different level of the relationship. This is not just I'm committed to you, which is very powerful. So Kedushin is very, very powerful. It's not a small thing. Kedushin is a commitment of my garments. Now you could live your whole life that way because it's a very powerful lifestyle. When you make a commitment to somebody and you're there. But is it the ultimate relationship? It's not the ultimate relationship. It's the introduction to the second relationship, to the second phase. And the second phase is where two actually merge into one beyond the external. That's not a tabas anymore. That's not a ring I put on somebody's finger which may define them and their actions and may define me and my actions. But rather what it is, like he says here, the Lashon, V'sein chalkenu b'soira secha. That's why we don't say V'sein chalkenu b'toira. Why V'sein chalkenu b'soira secha? We know it's Hashem's Torah, because that's the deal. V'sein chalkenu b'soira secha. What I'm looking is for your Torah. What's your Torah? It's not my Torah. V'sein chalkenu b'soira secha. Sheibana b'samita shemeira v'yameinu v'sein chalkenu b'soira secha. There's Torah and there's your Torah. Because when you study Torah, you could study Torah and you could study Hashem's Torah. And it's not the same. What do you mean? What's the difference? So it's Hashem's Torah. It means how much of Torah do you see here? Because Torah has so many layers. I want the Chalkeinu B'Sarezech in your Torah, in other words, in the ultimate core and source of Torah, which is a projection of your wisdom, which then evolves and morphs into all the layers of Torah until the Pshat of Torah. The Pshat of Torah is also Chachmei Law, but it's already manifested and veiled in concepts and terms that are much more applicable to our mind. So if I'm learning a simple halacha, right, that is Chachmei Law. But it's manifested in a simple halacha with simple logic, but that same halacha you can trace back and elevate and reveal its abstract ideas and the nucleus of it until you reach the ultimate Chachmei Law, that's B'Sayra Secha. And that's where the Zivuk Pnimi happens, because the person experiences the ultimate source of Ein Sof, which is, I'm not just open to you on my terms, I'm open to you on your terms. And that's what intimacy means. Intimacy is, from an English perspective, it's into me see, but really it's into you see. In other words, I'm allowing myself, I'm opening myself not just to the other person on my terms, but actually to the other person on their terms. And that's difficult. That's challenging. That's very deep. That's the second level. That's the B'chin of Yirei Lo. That can only come after Katshena B'mitzvah Yisacha, V'sein Chalkena B'Sir Yisacha.
But the thing is, Al Pi Halacha will be achieves Kedushin.
There'll be what?
Via Al Pi Halacha achieves Kedushin.
Ein a Chaname. Ein a Chaname.
Yeah. Are you suggesting that Rav Mangid the Kaddish Bavia is a Kabbalistic concept? In other words, you have to first start with the Ba'as and the Bia is what you achieve later. Really, that's really a Suin idea. Is that what Rav was saying? He was saying really because of pritzes.
It actually is a very Kabbalistic concept. That's the whole point. Everything is also a Kabbalistic. It's also a Kabbalistic concept. It's also a halachic concept, meaning pritzes. He didn't want there should be kiddushin through bia because, whatever, for obvious reasons. So what's the idea? The idea of pritzes comes from the word paros, which means open. Really, kiddushin but through bia represents spiritually a very profound idea, and that is, let's decide our kiddushin not based on commitment, but based on intimate romance. That's how the relationship should be defined, which is a very beautiful idea. In other words, why are we using external mechanisms to make us marry? Tell me, by giving a person a document, you're married? By giving a person a ring, you're married? Those are all external stuff. Bia represents, there's nothing else. Pashat and halacha. Kesef, you need money. A ring. Shtar, you need a piece of paper. What do you have, bia? You need nothing. You need you and her. So that's the question. What defines a good marriage? What defines a good marriage? Bia argues nothing. There's nothing before you, nothing after you, nothing outside of you, no legal mechanism, no spiritual mechanism, certainly no religious mechanism. All there is, I like it, you like it. Let's have fun. Knock yourselves out. Essentially, it's the most romantic version of marriage. Why are we introducing legalistic mechanisms here? Right? Bia. There's only one problem. Problem is, pritzusa means open, breached. It's open. Something that's open comes in easy, but it also falls out easy. Tomorrow, or next year, we may not be so much in the mood. You know why? Like the Gemara, the Mishnah says, Matzah cheres na'emena. Or whatever. Plenty of reasons. Okay, so we were in, we're out.
But that happens today anyway.
Exactly, that's exactly the point. So Rav understood this. Rav wasn't just discussing a technical vart.
I'm saying even with legal.
But what happens if you have this vart of the tabas, meaning there's a commitment that transcends you? Yes, there are certain limitations to that. It doesn't have that explosive energy. But you know what? In a year from now, you'll still have that commitment. And that creates a safe environment where the bia can then thrive. This is the brilliance of halacha when it comes to relationships. The brilliance of halacha, we all know that Orthodox marriages are no guarantee to good marriages. Nobody here is naive enough to think that. That every frum marriage is blissful. You could speak to any therapist in Monsey and they'll tell you what's going on. We all know that. Marriage takes a lot of work, and more important, it takes two mention. Takes two human beings, not an animal and a beast. You need two people who are ready to work on themselves. What it does do is, Torah creates a mechanism that if people want and are committed to it, it allows a marriage to blossom. There's a guarantee. There's no such a thing as guarantees. People have to do work. And here we see it. Because this creates a safe environment where there's trust, where then you could work on the bia. Where if you start with bia, frankly, it's much geschmacker. It's free, it's spontaneous, It's real, it's experiential, that's the word. It's fully experiential, and it's about you and me, there's nothing else. There's no schwigger involved. You know what I mean? That concept. There's no schwigger. I'm not marrying into a family, which is the other extreme. Sometimes the problem from communities is people don't marry people, they marry families. The problem is you don't remain married to a family, you remain married to a person. That's the other extreme, which is a disaster sometimes. They choose a son-in-law because the family is going to work. It's not what your girl needs, it's not what your boy needs. But this has to do with people's issues with confidence and security, and if they fit in, if they don't fit in, whatever. It's a separate parsha. That's the other extreme. But the halachic perspective is a very powerful perspective. That the bia is beautiful. It's beautiful now, but there's an open space. Pritzus is an open space, so you could fly right out. That's what happens very often. This life changes. A lot of things going on. You were passionate yesterday, and next year you're passionate about other people. You go on a business trip, things change, right? People get pregnant, people lose money, people's body. There's so many things that change. When you have the chitzonius, which means a framework, a framework is always external. That's what a frame means. A frame of a picture is not the picture. A frame is always chitzonius. Well, you know what a frame does? A frame allows the picture, to stay protected. You have to maybe do other things, but the frame is the external framework. That's the ring. The ring represents the commitment that creates a safe haven where they're not running. There's a certain trust. And in that environment, you can develop a deeper romantic passion, which is what Bia represents. Okay, so Kadeshenu b'mitzvah secha v'sein chalkenu b'seder secha, right? The middle of Perik Dalet, Siv Dalet, on page 32 in Bamidbar. Page 32, middle of Perik Dalet. The line starts, Al Pasuk b'yom chasunose zematan teire shibchinas chasunose mamash. You see, K'mayim Razal Al Pasuk b'yom chasunose zematan teire shibchinas chasunose mamash. Again, page 32, Perik Dalet, a little below the middle of the page, the first column. So we have the request of Kachenu b'mitzvah secha in summation, saying Chalkeinu b'seder secha. Kachenu from the word Kiddushin, from the concept of Kiddushin, Erusin, Erastich li la'olam, Ve'esticha li la'olam, like we say in Hosea, I will betroth you for eternity, and this is what through mitzvahs. Kachenu b'mitzvah secha, we become mekudesh, we become betrothed, married to Hashem, kavayachol, through mitzvahs. And nonetheless, it's still not nisuyin, it's still erusin. Because Kiddushin, he places the ring on her finger, and there is a very deep connection in the sense that they are committed to each other, hareyat mikudeshes li, which is Kiddushin. But nonetheless, it's still lacking the component of what we call in halacha bia, which is complete oneness, or in the terminology he uses here, there is a relationship that's more pchinas chitzonius and pchina pnimis. And the summation of what we explained was that one is really a framework in which they can come together, and then there's the actual coming together. The framework would seem more external, in the sense that there's a commitment, there's a relationship, there's a trust, there's a loyalty. But then there is the actual oneness, which is what Bia represents. And in Yiddishkeit, in our relationship with Hashem, which is also a marriage, you have these two components. Kachenu b'mitzvah secha is the Kiddushin. V'sein chalkeinu b'seira secha, your Torah. That is not just the same tasim alach hamelech, or v'yisem kedoshim le'lekeichem, which is again from the word Kiddushin, like we say at the end of Krishma, but this is b'seira secha. We should have please give us our part in your Torah. In other words, we should be able to experience your Torah, Seira Secha, B'china Zivug v'yichud mamish, that's b'yem chasunose zematan Torah. L'chein Amir Razal, that's why the Gemara says in Maseches Yevamis, the Gemara says in Yevamis Kuftet, Af Kuftet, Kol ha'omer ein li ela Torah, afilu Torah ein li. Very interesting expression in Chazal. Somebody who says, I don't need only Torah. I don't have nothing else but Torah. Torah, Kol ha'omer ein li ela Torah, the Gemara, Torah Yosa doesn't have. Those are the thing a person says, Ein li ela Torah. There's nothing but Torah. So a pashtus, it means that a person cannot just say, in my life I need only Torah. A person, there's Torah and there's Gvulas Chasadim also. What we would call, being kind, being a mensch. Somebody says, only Torah. So the Gemara says, Torah also. I can guarantee you, Hatmish can Torah. I feel the Torah ein li. Here he teaches the Maimon Chazal on a deeper level. Ki I efshel lahamshach b'chinas ha-Torah b'mekoyre v'shar sheshi chachamei Allah b'chinas pnimis b'likdimus ha-mitzvahs b'chinas yirat hatah b'chinas chitzonis. Kol ha'omer ein li Torah afilu Torah ein li means perhaps you can comprehend the seichel of Torah, or at least some of the seichel of Torah, I should say. Some. A certain glimmer, a certain aspect of the intellect of Torah without Yiras Shamayim. But one cannot become one with the mahus of Torah, with the core of Torah, which is what? Which is Chachma Elah. It's the highest level of wisdom, the source of all wisdom, divine wisdom, which is one with Hashem. Hu v'chachmasa yachad, and the Ein Sof dwells and is manifested in Chachma. Hashem b'chachma, and Araisa is mechachma nafkas. One cannot grasp that, cannot connect to that without the introduction of Yirat Hatah, which is expressed in mitzvahs, even though that would seem more chitzoniistic, but that is the only prerequisite. So, kol ha'omer ein li ela Torah, afilu Torah ein la. If somebody says, I'm going to go straight to Torah, like in a marriage, they're going straight to Bia. Straight to Bia. What do I need? The introductions? What do I need the preliminaries? The ceremonials? We'll skip it. We'll go straight to the core. Kol ha'omer ein li ela Torah. I want Torah. Sein chalkeinu b'seir sacha. Afilu Torah ein la. Some pshat he'll be lacking the mitzvahs. Even the Torah, ultimately, he will not be able to have it. V'zeu shamar Razal. That's what the Chazal say. In Maseches Brachas, everybody knows the Mishnah in Brachas, the first perek. Sha'achar shekibel of oil malchus shamayim mikabel of oil mitzvahs. More brings the Mishnah brings in Brachas Daf Yud Gimel. Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says, Lama kadma parsha shma leva parshas vayim shamaya. Why is parsha shma and krishma before? Sheikabel of tchila oil malchus shamayim, v'achar shekabel of oil mitzvahs. First, you makabel the yoke of the kingdom of heaven, Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, V'aftas Hashem Elokecha, etc. And then you start V'hayim Shemaya, which is the yoke of mitzvahs. So he says Pshat is as follows: Ki'i ev sheli is kiyam amiti, lekabolos el malchus shemayim sheva parsha yishayna, liyos al yedei ze v'dibarta bam, b'shiftecha b'veisecha chuli, kiyam aydei oil mitzvahs hamelech shem b'chinas kedushin k'nisker le'el. When we say Kabbalas el, there's two parashas of Krishma. Kabbalas el malchus shemayim and Kabbalas el mitzvahs. Again, at the surface level, al pipshat, Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim is the simple conviction and awareness that you have a king, you have a melech, Hashem is your balabas, you have a master, and you're obligated to fulfill his commandments. Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim, you accept the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. That's what Pashtus. According to this, it was a little shver. What's the chiddush that you need Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim before Kabbalas al mitzvahs? Obviously. If I don't have any allegiance to you, why should I do your mitzvahs? If you're not my king, yeah. If an employer calls me up and says, the next hour I need you to do this and this, it's very nice. The only thing is I don't work for you. There's one little condition. I just don't work for you. There has to be, I work for you. You're working, fine. So now my hours, so to speak, belong to you. You pay me for them. So I have an allegiance to you. So of course, if there's no Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shamayim, what's Kabbalah Sal Mitzvahs? The Chamil the Pshita. There's no concept of a Hayim, Shamaya, Tishmal, Mitzvah, Shanoich, Mitzvah, Eschamayim. It becomes meaningless. What does a mitzvah mean? A commandment. What do you have with me to command me, and I should define my life on you? That's why the Balatanya here explains a little deeper. Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shamayim here means something else. It means something, not something else, but something deeper. It's not just the concept I have a king. It's the concept of Yirei law. It's like when I'm in front, Kabbalah Zamal Shamayim means when I'm in front of the king. I'm in the presence of the king. In other words, Yirei law. Kabbalah al mitzvahs is Yirei tata. Kabbalah al Malchus Shamayim is the b'china of Yirei law. That's why in the first parsha of Krishma, right after Shema and V'afta, he speaks about learning Torah. Immediately. V'afta Hashem alakecha. V'hayu advarim ha'ela shanoichim mitzav chayim alecha v'shinantam levanecha. V'dibarta bam b'sh. That's why he brings there this pasuk. V'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veisecha v'lechtecha b'derech. Because as we learned before, imein chachma ein yira. The Yirei law can be experienced only and exclusively through Torah. Because in Torah you have the atzmius, the core of the infinite energy of Hashem. So that's why the Chachamim say, don't think you can have Parsha Rishayna without Parsha Shniya. It's not going to work that way. You must have together Parsha Rishayna and Parsha Shniya. You need Kabbalas al Mitzvahs together with Kabbalas al Malchus Shamayim. Because without Yirei Tata, it's a package deal. Without Yirei Tata, there's no way you'll be able to experience Yirei law. So a person says, no, I want to jump straight to the Biyah. But the Biyah is not going to work without Kesef. And like I explained, it could be very transient, very temporary. First, there has to be an a more external relationship, a framework to the relationship that creates a haven in which you can be there put together, and then on that you can build a very profound reality. So spiritually, it's also that way. The person has to have an element of refinement, an element of commitment, an element of Soim Tasim Alecha Melech, which is expressed in mitzvahs, to be able then to go to step 2 and experience the full presence of Hashem in his life, the ultimate dveikus and intimacy, which can be achieved through and after Limud HaTorah. So, im ein yira ein chachma, im ein chachma ein yira.
So it's going against the pshat. In other words, it doesn't really mean that you're Kabul first all Malchus Shemayim and then all mitzvahs. Because the pshat seems to be the way we always learn the Gemara. If you put it on timeline, time A is when you Kabul all Malchus Shemayim,
Right.
and time B afterwards is when you Kabul all mitzvahs.
Well, of course, ein in yotzei midei pshutai, that Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shemayim comes before Kabbalah Sal Mitzvahs, and that's why Shema comes before V'hayim Shemaya. He's just explaining a deeper idea in this, not to be Moitzi Midei Pshutai, because Al Pi Pshat, there's something difficult here, as I said, L'chad it's a davar Pashat, that Kabbalah Sal Mitzvahs comes with Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shemayim, that there's something deeper here in the Nekuda that Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shemayim represents Yirei Law, and Kabbalah Sal Mitzvahs represents Yirei Tata, and one cannot be experienced without the other, and that's why Parsha Rishona and Parsha Shniya have to come together, and that's why Parsha Rishona is so much focused on Torah. That's what he says. Look at his words. There will never be a Kiyam Amiti for Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shemayim in the first parsha. In other words, the tachlis of Kriya Shema is Parsha Rishona. But in order to have Parsha Rishona, you must include Parsha Shniya, because Parsha Rishona without Parsha Shniya. What's Parsha Rishona? Kabbalah Sal Malchus Shemayim, which brings to Torah. That can only happen through Ol Mitzvahs HaMelech, which is the concept of Kiddushin, because you don't have Kiddushin before Nisuyin. I'm sorry, you don't have Nisuyin without Kiddushin. You don't jump into Nisuyin without Kiddushin. Physically it's that way, halachically it's that way. The same is true spiritually that way.
So Yirei Lu is the same choice as Yirei Torah?
Yirei Lo what?
It's also a choice, like Yirei Torah is also something you have to do?
I wouldn't call it so much a choice, because as we said, it's not something that you could really initiate. It's the experience that comes through Chachma. Imein Chachma and Yireh. It's the energy that,
So how can you get it?
you can open yourself up to it. It's like,
By just saying Shema Yisrael.
well, it's like everything in Chassidus. There's people who say Kriya Shema for 80 years, and there's layers in everything. It's what you open yourself up to. The same words can be very significant to one person and have a completely different significance to another person.
It's almost like the Rambam in his Mishnah Torah always has a little koseres above when he gets to the halachas. What's really this all about?
Yeah.
So he's saying like the first pasuk of Shema is what's this really all about? Ol Malchus Shemayim Yirei Law. Now let's talk to Tachlis of how it unfolds.
Right.
Really.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Achine kol ze hu derech v'seder ha'avoda lahakdim yireh tata b'kiyam ha'mitzvahs tchile mein yireh in chachma v'achakach mein chachma in yireh. Yeah. So now, the pashtus, the relationship between Torah and mitzvahs is limud mevi l'dei maisa. A person cannot do mitzvahs if he doesn't know mitzvahs. So limud ha-Torah is mevi l'dei maisa. That's the pashtus. On a deeper level, it's the other way around. What he says here, that the tachlis is limud ha-Torah, because through it a person can reach complete vekas with Hashem through Torah. But in order to reach that, you need mitzvahs. So it's almost mitzvahs could bring to Torah. Yeah, we'll soon see. Yeah. So now we go back to the inyan of Matan Torah. So all this is the Seder Avodah. You start with Yireh Tata, which is mitzvahs, Imen Yireh and Chachma. And then it's Din and Chachma and Yireh Dainu Am Shachas Chachma Lo Basic HaTorah. the communication, the flow of the highest chachma, of the supernal wisdom in Torah, which in Torah you have the oneness of the infinite one, to the point that it can bring a person and bring tremendous awe, in the sense of mazlayu chazi. The Seder Vayedaber zuri shayachach shekvar nitnu Torah mitzvos liyisrael. The Seder Vayedaber is shayach after Torah and mitzvahs were given to the Jewish people. Aval b'shas matan Torah, when it happened at matan Torah shadayin lo hoyu Yisrael mitzuvim. Ala mitzvahs, Jews were not yet commanded on mitzvahs. Me'ayin hoysam shachas ha-Torah chachmei lo begilei and seif baruch hu mamash. L'cha'oira, then they didn't have the introduction of mitzvahs. So how did they have the communication, the flow, the hamshacha of Torah, which is chachmei lo, with the revelation of ein seif baruch hu mamash? In other words, by Matan Torah, there was a gilui of Ein Sof Baruch Hu. Everything that's in Torah came out in a revealed way by Matan Torah. And that's why it says, Vayar ha'am vayonu. They were overtaken by tremendous ema. Like the Gemara says, Be'ema, Be'yira, Be'resas, Be'ziyah. L'cha'oida, to reach this yira, you first need the yira tatav mitzvahs. But then they didn't even have mitzvahs yet. So after Matan Torah, we have Torah and mitzvahs. So we say, Yemein yira in chacham, Yemein chacham in yira. Then they didn't even have mitzvahs. That's why the pasuk says over there, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. Matan Torah is introduced with these words in Parshas Yisro. Hashem came down on Har Sinai, which means Shahoisi is Harusa de La'ela. Biratzin is Barach Me'ela, there was a certain Harusa de La'ela, an arousal from above, an inspiration from above. Harusa is his Eirus. The La'ela from Milmaila, from above, Hashem's will. Me'ela on his own, Ulatzarech Shah. For a temporary moment, that Hashem wanted to reveal His presence to the Jewish people, even though they didn't have the regular introduction of Yirat Tata. Nonetheless, the Jewish people understood on their own. There's no way that this is going to become a kviyas l'dairis. This will become a permanent thing for generations, to be able to experience the Ein Sof only through mitzvahs. And that's why even then they said Nasa v'nishma. And here again we have a deeper interpretation of what Nasa v'nishma means. Literally, Nasa v'nishma represents the concept that the Jews said, you know what? We don't have to hear all the details. Nasa we will do, and Nishma then we will hear, we will learn, we'll understand, which is basically the idea that by Matan Torah, Hashem said that you wanted Torah. So usually when somebody asks you for you want a product, you say, let me see the product. Let me study the product. Give it to me for a few months. Let me study the product. Then I'll tell you yes or no. The moment Hashem says, do you want it? They say, Nasa, we'll do it. V'nishma, and then we'll hear. That's on one level. Nasa v'nishma. On a deeper level, they're actually creating a curriculum. Nasa v'nishma is, ef shaliyas nishma. There cannot be nishma. What is nishma? Nishma is from the concept of understanding. Like Shema Yisrael doesn't only mean listen. It means listen, perceive, get it, understand it. There's an expression in the Tanakh, Daber ki shemeya avdecha. Right? We say in English, I hear you. I hear you doesn't mean I hear you. I can hear you but not hear you. I hear you means I get you. I comprehend you. So Ef Shaliyas Nishma, there can be this concept of Nishma. Hu am shachas atayra b'chinas pnimis, which is internalizing the Torah in an internalized way, which is like Bia, Yichud Pnimi, Elai de Nasa. First has to be Nasa, Pchinas Asiyas HaMitzvahs. The performance of mitzvahs, Liyas Kelim Mishkam Ashrav Am Shachazu. Because this allows you to become a vessel, a Keli, an open vessel, like a Keli, Mishkan, and a dwelling place, a sanctuary, Lashrav Am Shachazu. Without the Nasa, the Nishma doesn't have where to dwell. It's very powerful, but there's no person who is an open keli for this type of relationship.
But the Sinai was the Zivik was first.
Oh, so by Har Sinai itself, the Zivik was like Bia right away. Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. But they understood on their own that this Kviyas L'Doiris can only happen if there's Yirat Tata first. So that's why they said Nasa v'nishma. That's going to be what we're accepting on ourselves, because it's not a short-term thing. It's a long-term. Then it was a short-term experience. But this is a long-term.
That's year.
And that's why Takamatan Torah was so dramatic. You know, Kailas and Brokim and Parchan and Shmasan.
NASA was like a commitment, or
A commitment, yeah, a commitment.
It was also like a commitment before the.
Yeah.
The year at the time that Yidden felt was very little previous, right? But
That was Yirei Law. So
Yeah.
God showed up. That was Yirei Law.
Oh.
Even though there were no mitzvahs. So he says that was a special Gilui, Service of the La'ela.
Which one was either the NASA?
No. What happened at Matan Torah?
But the NASA was either the.
Yeah. Yeah. A commitment for Yirei Tatan and Nishma's Yirei Law. V'zeh Shomer Razal, this is what Chazal say, in Gemara Masechta Shabbos, Daf Peches, Mi Gila Rozeh. It says when the Jewish people said Nasa before Nishma, Hashem said, Mi Gila Lebanai Rozeh, the Gemara says. This is in Masechta Shabbos, the section about Matan Torah. Who revealed to my children this secret? What's the secret of Akdamas Nasa? What's the secret? What's the secret? Nasa, you'd ask me, I'll do and then I'll listen. What's the secret? Mi Gila Lebanai Rozeh, it's a secret. Shahaya be'emes b'chinas ras, because then it was a secret. B'chinas helam. A secret means something that's concealed. Secret is not about how many people know it. It's about something that's by nature concealed. Because then what was begilui was that the Torah came out before the introduction of the mitzvahs. That time, before mitzvahs were given, the seder that's necessary for the permanent experience of Ein Sof, it was still a secret. It was still Begeder Sof. It was something that wasn't revealed yet in the world because there was no Nesinas HaMitzvahs yet. And the Torah was given as a unique Gili, a unique Chesed. It's that the Jewish people understood then a Soid that was still Behelim, that was still a secret. They understood this idea that without Nasa, you're not going to be able to have Nishma in a long-term relationship. It's interesting, huh?
So how's it the secret Shamal Hashem is Mishtam Shabo? Meila Bishlam, the way we've learned till now, I understand the secret Shamal Hashem is Mishtam Shabo. How is this the secret? This is Fakir. This is not the secret Shamal Hashem is Mishtam Shabo.
You mean Nasa and Nishma?
Yeah. Migil Razal Lebanai Shamal Hashem is Mishtam Shabo.
You're asking a good child. What's the Gemara says there that this is a secret that the Malachim knew, Malachim used. What's the shaykhs to the Malachim?
Means the Malachim use for them or against them. If Moshe uses against them, he's mishtamshim b'hem. Moshe told them you don't have the mitzvahs.
That's also in the Gemara there. Yeah.
Yes. He uses
It's a hara yesh b'nechem.
Yeah. You have mitzvahs kibbutav, you have this. Doesn't mean that mishtamshim b'hem they use it for this, they use it against them.
No, that's good. So there's actually another mimer of the Balatanya that addresses this, also here in Shavuos, because Torah Shavuos Maimarim. It's a little bit of an arichis. I'll say it to Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow, his answer. But I want to say one nekuda, which is also an intro to it. There's a famous question of the Beis Halevi. Beis Halevi, in his Sefer Al Torah, he has at the end, he has Drushim, so I think it's Drush Tazayin or Yud Zayin. He asks a very interesting question about Nasa v'Nishma. Fascinating question. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch and Choshen Mishpat in Rambam Hilchas Mechira that if somebody makes a deal with somebody else, for example, I tell you, I'm going to feed you for the next 10 years, and we make a kinyan. Let's say you give me your gartel and I lift it up, becomes mine, which is called a kinyan chlippin, and in lieu of that, I, so to speak, commit to you this obligation. I commit to this obligation that I'm going to support you for the next 10 years. And there's witnesses and everything is, nobody's denying it. I'm not obligated to fulfill it. Why? Because it's a davar she'en like kitzvah. Meaning, I didn't know what I was getting into. If you give me a price, you say I need $20,000 for 10 years of food, I commit. But if it's a davar she'en like kitzvah, it's so nebulous, the yesod by kinyan is there has to be gemiras das. You have to assume that both the buyer, the seller, the giver, the taker, know what they're getting into, so that it's a consensual commitment. If it's just in the year, if it's abstract, I'm not mechuyev. Davar she'en lo kitzva. You have to know what you're getting into, and if not, it's not considered even an obligation, because it's easy to say, yeah, I'll be here. People, I'll be here for you for the rest of your life. What does that mean, you'll be here for me? Well, you'll be here for me. I'll get you clothes. Tell me what. If you tell me what, that's the halach. Asks the Beis Halevi, if so, Nasa v'nishma was meaningless halachically. Because what's Nasa v'nishma? We're committing to do, but you don't even know what. So if Hashem would say, okay, I need you to do 613 things, and you say yeah, it's a schayvus. But they didn't say yeah on that. They said nasa, whatever you want. It's ain't like kitzvah. You don't even know what you're getting into. If you don't know what you're getting into, halachically you're not obligated. Because it's like a mekach tos. We don't believe that a person should be held accountable on something that they didn't know in advance what they're getting into. It's just not fair. It's unjust. I think it's in secular law also that way in America. It's not considered a kinyan. It's not considered a schayvus. Here we have a lawyer.
Yeah, why don't you say also on this? They didn't have to have kitzvah.
So that's the Beis Halevi's answer. He says that he saw this question in a sefer. He doesn't know. He doesn't remember which sefer. That's what he says there. The question is also asked by the Chidah. So it could be that's what he meant. The Chidah asks the same question.
Is he saying? I don't want to read too much into what he's saying. He's saying that a conceptual understanding of Torah is not shaykh without a practical interaction with that Torah. Is it?
Where in this mimer you're saying?
In this mimer. What I'm hearing, and I don't want to read too much into it, but if I want to have a conceptual understanding, if I want to have a nishma of an Indian, I would have to ask somebody who has a nasi. If I ask somebody who has no shaykhis in Lamaisa, and I'm looking for a conceptual understanding,
it's going to be lacking.
It's going to be lacking.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. That without the nasi, you won't be able to have the nishma.
So the person could be a gadol, the person could have a tremendous nishma, but if he's not,
If there's no practical application, it'll be lacking. No, I think it's true. It's certainly part of it. So this is what the Beis Halevi asks. So he answers as follows. He answers a very interesting answer. He says, can I be makna myself that I'm going to be your employee for the next 20 years? Or avdus, let's take avdus. A person sells himself as an eved in halacha, right? An eved for 6 years. Yeah, it works. The master doesn't write down everything he's going to ask him to do. One day it may be gardening, another day it may be harvesting, a third day it may be cleaning, it may be so many other things. So it's again, there's no cheshayvus. The answer is, it does work in halacha. Why does it work? Because the geder of the shibud is not on the details. It's on the person. I am becoming your servant. I belong to you. B'meila, we're talking about under humane, sensitive Torah conditions. We're not talking about chas v'shalom oppression, like sirda by befarach is an aveira. But under normal, humane circumstances, b'meila, whatever you ask of me, which you can ask of an eved, according to the Torah's terms, I'm a choyev to do. I didn't know what I'm getting into. If I'm mischayev myself on money, I'm going to support you for 20 years in terms of food and clothes and shelter and all your needs. What money? What? How much money? It's not a hischayvus. But here I wasn't mischayev myself to give you something specific. I gave you myself. That has a kitzvah. I know exactly what it is. I took me and I gave that over to you. That's yesh like kitzvah. That's not a problem. So he says by naisa v'nishma, it wasn't a hischayvus on we're going to do whatever you want. No. Nasa v'nishma meant we belong to you. We know who we are. We're taking ourselves and we're entering into a relationship. I belong to you. My life is connected to you. My life belongs to you. Or to put it in this context here, hareyat mikudeshesli. What's hareyat mikudeshesli? What? I belong to you. I am your spouse. The husband belongs to the wife belongs to the husband. Like the ksuva. It's not just a detail. I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you that, I'm going to give you that. There's that too. There's certain pratim, you mischayev yourself, whatever you mischayev. whatever the, certain different weddings, different tanayim. But the point is, there's a shibud on the guf of the person, on the gavra. It's not on the chefza. It's not on what I'm going to give you. It's on the person himself. That's yesh lekitzvah. Now that's a pretty big commitment. Avdus is not like any other commitment. I am yours. That's the gather. So the Beis Halevi says that's why even halachically and legally it works. And as a result of that, he explains a very interesting thing. That afal pi shechata yisraelhu. The halacha is that a Jew who sins is still a Jew. And not only that, halacha, even a mumar, in other words, a Jew who leaves everything. So according to many poskim, kiddush of kiddushin. If he's mekadesh anisha, you don't say he's a goy. You need a get. He's a mumar, he's not a Jew anymore. He's not a Jew. Halachically, he's still considered a Jew. Afal pi shechata, it says by Achan, the Gemara says on Sanhedrin, Yisraelhu. Or as some people say today, Afal pi shaloi chata Yisraelhu, which is sometimes harder to understand. Even if he's from, he's still Jewish, even if he's your neighbor. So, what's the Havana? So the Beis Halevi says as follows. He says something very beautiful. He says that in Hektish, there's something called Kinyan Damim and Kinyan Haguf. Kedushas Dam, Kedushas Haguf. If I dedicate my iPhone to the Beis Hamikdash, yeah? It's called Bedek Habayis, yeah. So it belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. So the halacha is, I could redeem it. What do I mean I could redeem it? I can give them money for it. If it's me, myself, I add a fifth and it comes up. Kedushas Haguf, I take a sheep and I'm dedicated to a carbon, I can't redeem it. Unless it becomes a balmum, so it's disqualified. But as long as it could be a carbon, there's no pidyon. Why? Because the guf is not holy. The value of it I dedicated. It's $100. $100 to the Beis HaMikdash. The guf is not connected. But carbon is kedushas haguf. The guf itself is holy. So there's absolutely no pidyon.
Maybe they could use the phone in the Beis HaMikdash.
They probably could use the phone in the Beis HaMikdash, but it's not negeya. It's not a carbon. It's not a carbon, yeah. Even if you give an animal, but not as a carbon, just as an asset of the Beis HaMikdash. Like you give a bookcase to the Beis HaMikdash. You give a sefer, a video camera, whatever it is you give, it's the value. There's another interesting difference between them, and that's when it comes to me'ilah. You're not allowed to use something that belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. If you do b'shoigig, you have to bring a carbon. We say it every morning, Asham me'ilas. You have to pay back with ad chaimish. It's a process called me'ilah. If you do it b'shoigig, inadvertently. What happens, so let's say this belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, and I use it. So that's me'ilah. So I have to pay back, I have to add a fifth, I have to bring a carbon. But you know what? If you use it after me, nothing. Ein me'ilah acha me'ilah. Because once I used it, it went out l'chul, and now it's mundane. Now I have to pay back everything. But there's no me'ilah after me'ilah. Because once one me'ilah happened, it's all over. It was already, so to speak, made mundane. That's by Kedushas Damim. By Kedushas Haguf, it's not that way. There's me'ilah, acha me'ilah, acha me'ilah, acha me'ilah. Because even if I'm moyel, I misuse it, I still cannot take it out of Kedushas Haguf. So this is what the Beis Halevi says. If you taina nasav and nishma was an inyan of a commitment to do mitzvahs, so then the Jew says, my time, my resources, my value belongs to Hashem. That wasn't nasav and nishma. Nasav and nishma was Kedushas Haguf. Kedushas Haguf means my very mitzias, my identity belongs to you. My I belongs to you. But Mela, what you want, I'll do. But it starts with the I. My very I. If it's Kiddushin, Tzariat Mekudeshesli. If that's the case, so it's Kedushas Haguf. So he says there's no pidyon. Afal pi shechata, and there's no me'ilah. Afal pi shechata Yisraelhu. There's no way you could take it out l'chulin. He says the Jew could become an apostate, he could convert to another religion, he could become an atheist, he can abandon everything. But he's not going to be Yotze L'chulin, because it's Kedushas Haguf. And even if there's Me'ilah, in other words, it's misused and it's used inappropriately, the Kedushas Haguf remains because it's not Kedushas Damim. It's the very Guf became divine. That's the Nekuda there. It's a very, very fascinating discussion. He says this is the difference of a Jew and a non-Jew, halachically, and so forth. And he's masbid the whole sugya and Shabbos based on this as well. This, I think, gives clarification to our discussion here. This is the framework of Kiddushin. What's Kiddushin? Kiddushin is not Nisuyin. Kiddushin means we belong to each other. Once you have that commitment that you belong to each other, now you can have bia. Now you can actually let each other experience each other fully. If you don't have this of belonging, then you don't have the safe environment where people can have into me see or into you see, because it's too dangerous, it's too vulnerable, it's too transient. Only when you have this nekuda of kiddushin, even though relative to bia it's still chitzonius. Nasa relative to nishma is still chitzonius. But what's nasa? Nasa is not just a commitment to do. It's like he said before, soim tasem alecha melech, v'yisem kedoshim alecha. I'm going to put on tefillin. Remember, by nasa they weren't discussing any. They didn't even know the mitzvahs yet. They didn't even know the mitzvahs. So what was it? It was a commitment to a relationship. Before you, it's not yirei law. It's yirei tata. It's not yirei law. Yirei law is a complete meltdown, so to speak, complete oneness. But once you have that, you can then have the second stage. This was the secret they understood. Why is it such a secret? Because in a moment of tremendous inspiration, usually it's very hard to understand this. Put it simply, when bia is happening full force, it's very hard to step back and say, tomorrow it's all going to be over. When people are on top of the game, the hardest thing is to say that tomorrow it's all done. Because it's so good and it's so beautiful, who wants to say that? And who is even in the mental state to be able to say that? It's a complete secret. The problem is, a year later, that's exactly what's going to happen. So that was the great secret. Hashem was very impressed. Megillah Labanai Raz said that during that Matan Torah, instead of being swept up with the moment itself, but it would be only short term, they said Nasa v'Nishma. They understood that L'Doiris, the only way it's going to work is if there's going to be Nasa and then Nishma, Hamshacha Chitzanis, Hamshacha Pnimis, Mitzvahs, and then Torah, Kachenu Mitzvah V'Sein Chalkeinu B'Seir Sach. And then I'll be Mashtem Mitz Hashem, the Nekuda with the Malachim. You'll see, based on this, we'll understand the Mitzvah with the Malachim.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.